Welcome to the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast, where we share what it takes to build a successful career as a musician in musical theater and beyond, with your host, Clayton Craddock.
Welcome to Broadway Drumming 101. My guest today is Carl Latham. Thank you for coming on my podcast.
Man, it's a complete honor. Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Now we're going to talk about your amazing career. You've done so many different amazing things. I love your latest album, which was released sometime in the fall of 2021, correct?
That was a little trio CD I did with a bass player named Ryan Berg, who lives close to me, and really nice piano player Alex Collins. We were doing live streams during the shutdown from my studio.
Oh, wow.
And I was going to do a compilation of all kinds. Your buddy Roger was here, Squidero, and like a lot of different guys came in. And that particular night, for some reason, was really cool. So we decided to release it.
Was that your second record that came out?
That's been releasing since the 90s. I released something called Dancing Spirits in maybe 99, which was with John Lee and Bobby Malik and Tommy Guarna, Mitch Stein, a bunch of guys like this. And then I had a record called Resonance, which was in 2007, where I do a lot of most of the music I do in the last few years. I'm covering like pop songs. I'm really into like doing rock songs as jazz to try to like bring that music to people who wouldn't listen to it. So that record has like a lot of Hendrix and Stevie Wonder and stuff like this. And then I did a record called, a record I really love with Mark Egan and Ryan Carno, where I covered all Bjork music and did it in the style of Bitches Brew. And that got like we were in the BMW World Jazz Award. They picked 6 bands from around the world. We were the only band from North or South America. We played at the BMW headquarters. Very interesting recording. And then I did one called Living Standards with Mark, which is like, did I do Hendrix? No, I did a lot of Beatles. I even did Lowrider.
Oh, wow.
Stuff like this. And then that last recording was like a jazz recording, which is funny because as a lot of people know me as a jazz drummer, most of the people that I work with in the U.S. don't know that I play that style at all, which is what I've been doing for almost 30 years in Europe, which is some freewheeling, just anything goes.
Well, speaking of Hendrix and Miles Davis, what music did you grow up listening to?
Very eclectic. I have a brother who's 10 years older, whose name is Rick Latham, who's not the Rick Latham. and Rick Latham and I always chat about this because my brother, Rick Latham, who's 10 years older, he was a hobby drummer. So I started maybe when I was 5 or 6, like he let me play on he had beautiful red sparkle Slingerland. But he was a great drummer. It was like the really vibrant time. Like he played like Mitch Mitchell's from Hendrix, and he had a cover band where they even opened for like Johnny Winter and a couple other bands. And he was a great drummer in all those styles of like the late 60s. So that's what's the first stuff I started listening to. But then my mother, who had been a singer before she got married, there was a comedian named Ernie Kovacs was her manager, and she always sang around the house. She was really religious, so we had a lot of like religious music in the house. And then my father was into like this bizarre stuff, like all over the map. Hendrix to Shostakovich to Stan Kenton I grew up listening to everything really early.
Were your friends in junior high and high school into eclectic music as well, or
no, they were ready to kill me because by that point the first band I saw live was Chicago. I think maybe I was 7, and then I was a huge Mahavishnu fan. Like I was a Billy Cobham, and I went to Avery Fisher Hall expecting to see the band with Billy and Jan and all those guys, and Narada showed up, and this like changed my life. I was like, oh, what's this about? So my poor friends, they'd be into like George Thorogood and the Destroyers and Supertramp and all that, and I'd be playing Maha or Return to Forever or Weather Report. They'd be like, shut that stuff off. What are you doing, man?
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Western New Jersey. A place called Frieden, which is barely on a map. It's near the Delaware Water Gap.
Oh, wow. Okay. For Route 80?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Weird seat because the rest of I'm younger. My oldest brother is 14 years older. So the rest of my family grew up urban in the Trenton area of New Jersey. Most of them don't even admit they grew up, they have any association where I grew up. I worked on a farm as a kid. I baled hay and stuff like this.
Oh, wow.
As a trip. So we used to have you had rabbit ears for TV, and we used to be able to get WRVR. About that station, this was a very important station in New York, which played like the most broad eclectic mix of music possible. I grew up country. I live in the country. I'm country.
Did you listen to country and Western back then?
Not back then. No, I was torturing my friends with like Visions of the Emerald Beyond.
Vital Transformation. Like, dude, check
it. I couldn't play in 4/4 if my life depended on it.
You started out, did you like Genesis and stuff like that? Or was it more of the jazz fusion?
I loved Yes.
Fragile's my favorite record from Fragile.
I like quirky drummers. Like, I love how quirky Bill Bruford plays. So I love him and I loved him later with King Crimson, the band with Adrian Belew and Tony Levin.
So if you like that, I'm just curious, just have this thing called a tangent alert. This is not really a tangent to a certain degree, but do you like bands like Tool?
I like Tool. By that point, it's interesting because I came up really listening hardcore to fusion, and probably where does my prog end off? My proggy stuff ends off with those musics, because there was a point in my career where I met a great bass player named John Lee. He was Dizzy Gillespie's last bass player. I knew him as a fusion musician with Jerry Brown. They had bands. Somehow he threw me totally into the straight ahead loop. And at that point in my career, I just stopped listening to everything because I was trying to go back and get my straight ahead together.
Well, I'm sure you probably listened to and liked Tony Williams' Lifetime records from the mid-70s, the Believe It record.
That's like Holy Grail.
I tell you, when I first heard that, I was like, holy shit, this is like the greatest thing I've heard since ever. Of course, I realized that there's a whole bunch of those things that are just great in all kinds of different music. But you stopped progressing down the progressive road and got into straight ahead jazz. Were you into more stuff like Art Blakey and Coltrane, or I know you played with Ed Cherry too, right?
Man, funny. Ed and John. Well, I met John. I had a day gig for a minute as a computer analyst. There's a whole early career that's totally wild. I was in a national drum battle in the 80s. I took second place out of 7,000 drummers. The guy that beat me is Sonny Emery.
Oh my God. Really?
It was a Carmen Apiece national drum battle. And I was working a day gig. And I took lessons with Gary Chester. And Gary Chester hit me with a lead pipe over the head in my first lesson. He was like, "What are you doing? You have a day gig?" Took a place out of 7,000 drummers.
So wait, let's go back before we get to that. You grew up in Western Jersey. And did you play in a lot of bands in high school?
I started playing in bars when I was 15. George Thorogood. But we did play Dance of the Maya for one of the out on the bands.
Was that a Return to Forever?
No, that's Maha. That's from Intermounting Flame. We played Blue Oyster Cult, Cities on Flame with rock and roll, and that James Brown song that was not James Brown, the James Gang song that was really popular at that time.
49.
You got it, and it made the guys play Dance of the Maya. So that it started there, and at the same time, I was doing classical. I was really into classical. I was into all-state band as a timpanist and as a snare drummer, and was really into all those Dele Clue and Cerrone and blah.
So did you wind up going to music school right after high school, or did you just go and start playing?
I did. I went to Rutgers my first year, which I wanted to stay close to home because I was country. And it was close to New York. You take quick train in. And when I went there, there's a thing called Mason Groves School of the Arts, where everything's under one umbrella. But when I went there, I lived on the Livingston campus, so I could be associated with the jazz ensemble. The wind ensemble, where I played timpani, was on the Rutgers campus, and the symphony was on the Douglas campus. And what's even nuttier is that each of those campuses had their own music departments. So if you took Theory 101, they all used different textbooks. Oh man! And they competed. They would. I swear to God, they would schedule the jazz ensemble concert at the same time as the wind ensemble concert. So I was there for a year, and I had the privilege. What was really cool about going there was I studied with Freddie Waits. Freddie in those times, you didn't have to show up much as an adjunct professor. So Freddie was always on the road doing something. And do you remember Boom? He had this thing with Max and with Horace Arnold. Papa Joe came in one time as a sub to give us a lesson while we were there.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So I stayed there, and it was cool. At one point, it was I really want to get somewhere where it just didn't feel cohesive. You're taking buses to get from one campus to the other. Spent hours on the bus every day taking classes. So I went to Berkeley after that, which I absolutely loved. It was loved it there. And then I split Berkeley and went on the road.
And why'd you like Berkeley better? Because less travel, or you like the curriculum better?
Because I was nuts. Because I was one of those 6 or 8 hour a day practice guys.
Wow.
So I lived in the same building that my dorm was, where most of my classes were, where most of the meals were. I'm very good friends still to this day from Jeff Tane Watts. We were really good buddies back then at Berkeley. And man, what I loved about it was you would shed 4 hours, or you had to have a special system because they would turn your ID over when your time was up after 2 hours. You had to get to know the guy behind the desk and like work something out with him so he would flip your. So man, I would be in there like 6 or 8 hours a day. You feel like you had something together, and the guy next to you would just like be eating you for breakfast. That's what I loved about it. It was so vibrant and so many, and it was really like a collective. There were great drummers, and everybody had if somebody had a new idea, it was like this damn COVID. It was like a virus. It spread among like all the drummers. So it was cool. And I played in a lot of ensembles there. I was in 7 ensembles. I was a good reader. I was a good player. I had a lot of chops. So it was cool. I was in like Buddy Rich ensemble, or I was in the pop recording ensemble, et cetera, et cetera. But I split that to go on the road with a Haitian band, a compa direct band.
Wow. And
I got stranded in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, with no plane ticket home, bro. That's how I got out of the music business for a minute, because my poor dad, he couldn't relate to me being in the music business. He grew up in the Great Depression, picking coal off the railroad tracks, and he had a 43-year gigs with AT&T. So like I should have been a lawyer or a doctor or one of those professions. And he made a deal with me. He was like, I'll get you and your drums out of Haiti if you'll go back to real school, quote unquote. So I studied, you can't picture, I went to Ohio University, which is where I got my degree from. Man, I studied like 5 computer languages. I studied 3 levels of economics. I studied 2 levels. I studied calculus after not taking math for like 4 years, 3 years. Then I took a day gig as a computer analyst. That's where I met my wife. We're still together. She's upstairs working from home remote.
Did you learn C++?
This C++ is before. I learned, the computers that I worked on, like I worked on mainframes mostly, but I was in the team where we worked on the first laptop. The power that was in the laptop is probably like in your toaster now. We were trying to like get all kinds of stuff. They had these things called Bernoulli drives, which looked like big pizzas, man. It was like a floppy disk in a container, and you'd shove it in. Some of the old consoles had those. Do you remember like you ever see an old SSL? They used to write the automation to these crazy drives, man. And it was really like a big floppy disk you just shoved in.
Wow. So you went to school for IT, you started working for a company, then you were doing the day job thing, and then you started taking lessons with Gary Chester, and he was like, what are you doing, dude?
It was way worse than that. There's really? A documentary coming out, and Gary's daughter was here with Tony Cruz, and they filmed it, and it was really rude. I thought my career was over.
Really?
He just started screaming at me at the beginning of my first lesson.
What was he saying? Like he was encouraging you?
How G-rated is this show?
I haven't got my ratings from the podcast association yet.
Because everything was going fine. What happened was one of my private students, I was like the hotshot guy in the part of Jersey. So my first teacher would send all of his students to me to like learn new things he didn't teach them. And one of my guys who he does a lot of work. You might know this guy, Rich Colsar, very great drummer. And his wife is Denise Barbarita. They have a nice studio called Mona Lisa. And he went to Gary, and then he came just came over, and I was aware of Gary because of Joel and because of Dave and Kenny, and he started playing it. He'd get a third of the way down the page. I had no idea what he was playing anymore. I don't know anything about Gary's system, but he does all kinds of wild stuff where there's bass lines, and you're singing the bass line, you're playing melodies on top, and then the next week you invert, you play bass on snare, you call it, where now the bass part, you say, hey man, when you get to the bridge, why don't you put the bass part in the snare drum, and now we're going to hit the kicks in the bass drum. And on top of this, you had to play everything ambidextrously, and you had to sing all the different parts. So you go through the page. The page would be like a song. You play through the page, and maybe you sing the melody, which would be in a bass drum one time. Then you come back the next time, and you would sing the hi-hat part, or you'd sing the click track part. And the goal was to have everything sound the same, no matter what you sang, because you play the bass drum, you sing the bass drum, you play the bass drum louder. But so the student went to him. I was like, whoa, what's going on there? A little bit known to me, he had told Gary everything about my life. So I went to my first lesson. Gary just messed with me. He was like, I don't teach on Saturdays, but I'll let you in. And I had like 3 weddings that weekend, and I had a day gig, and I was teaching. I go over, and everything's cool, and we're sitting there, and everything's fine. And out of blue, he just goes, wait, you took second place out of 7,000 drummers in a national drum battle, and you're working a day gig? I was like, he goes, what's the matter with you, right? So you're in the head. I'm like, okay. And he goes, and you're still dating your high school sweetheart? He said, why don't you just have 14 babies to sell those drums? You don't deserve to be a drummer.
Wow. Damn.
And it was funny because, man, within 6 months, our girlfriend was gone, and a year and a half later, I became pro. He was one of those cats. He wasn't just a drum teacher. He knew people. He could read people. That's why I was like, he's that East Coast Hal Blaine. He played on all those recordings, and he wasn't just a great drummer. He was like a drum guru. His card, I think, said drum guru.
So tell the listeners about his method and his book and his story, so that, because I know that you're doing something.
Gary was probably the most important drummer in the New York recording scene in the period. He said there would be like a limo waiting out in front of the studio to take him to the next studio. It would be like that. He's on everything. I don't know his track record, but he's like, you just go down the list, just Locomotion to like I'm a Believer to Brown Eyed Girl to In the Still of the Night to Mr. Bassman to the Shirelles, who I work with now. Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? It's just like, it's kind of, he was Burt Bacharach's drummer.
Wow.
Like Burt Bacharach, they made a documentary about Gary that's going to come out. Burt Bacharach on tape said the session didn't happen if Gary wasn't available. So what happened was the way he explained it to me, which was that whenever he had a challenging part that he had to work out, he like wrote it down, had little slips of paper, and he shoved them in a shoebox or in the closet, and years later tried to figure out how to make a method out of it. So the first book, which I really didn't study much of the first book with him, I studied a little bit of it. I was a pro drummer, but I went to study. I was like playing all the time. He has systems, which are basically groove systems, and then there are pages of reading, which are melodies, and you play the groove and you read the melody at all different tempos. And he had this weird knack where sometimes you could play something like light speed, like ambidextrously leading with your left hand. So he would put the metronome at like 40, or the next time he would put it up to like 120. It was like wild stuff. I'll never forget in one lesson, and I really had my stuff cold with him. I felt like the time was tugging, like something was going on with the time. I looked over, and there he was with this evil grin on his face. He'd been doing this with the metronome, like over 2 minutes, like maybe went up like 5 clicks. But he was a great teacher. He was a great drummer. Very influential. He taught Dave Weckl. He taught Joe Rosenblatt. He taught Kenny Aronoff. He taught Danny Gottlieb. He taught Max Weinberg. Tico Torres is really into him. Van Romaine. It's like everybody in a certain time period that was in New York went and took lessons with Gary. Important cat. I would be probably retired in like Key West now if it hadn't been for Gary. And I don't have any regrets. But he's the reason why I became a professional drummer.
Gary Chester. So when you started taking lessons with Gary Chester, he was like reprimanding you for working a day job when you had so much talent and you won this contest. Tell me about this contest that you were in.
Totally another random situation. I was going to Ohio University. I was playing tennis with some friends, and they were like, there's this national drum battle. Well, I should preface, I left school with 12 credits left because I was doing every gig. I wasn't going to class, man. My professors were coming to see me play in the bars and in the clubs and the concert halls. I had every gig like in Central Ohio and West Virginia and forever. There was this. We were playing tennis, and the one friend was like, there's a drum battle up in Columbus, which is about an hour and a half away. It's like 500 people, I guess, per city submitted tapes. It was Carmen Apice's National Drum Battle. It's a really cool thing. And he went from city to city with Sandy Gennaro or the drummer from Heart, and they judged. My friends stormed the place, and we're like, our friend's the best drummer. Blah. So some guy, I guess, got sick, and they got me in. And I won the preliminary night out there, and then I went back and won the second night out there. And we had a couple months to shed, and they flew us all. It was my first time to L.A., and we stayed at the Gateway Sheraton, man. I remember this. But the drum battle, it was the beginning of MTV. I'm still trying to find it. It was in Griffith Park, and all those drummers were there. Like, who else? I'm trying to think of the whole list. We got Bunny Carlos, Carmen Apice, his brother Vinny, all these drummers. Like, they were all the judges. So they held the LA final before us. And then there were 15 cities total. And I was the winner for Columbus, Ohio. So then those guys played. And then the winner from LA joined us. And then we all played a 3-minute drum solo. And that was it. There was like just cold 3-minute drum solo. And I took second, and the drummer to beat me is Sonny Emery. I don't know if you know Sonny. He was a freak then too. Wow. So it was cool. Dude, it gave us, I think I got a Mattel Synsonics drum set. I forgot that was.
Synsonics.
That's what it was. It was a Carmen Apiece Synsonics, Mattel Synsonics National Drum Battle or something like this.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was cute.
Man.
It was cute.
So after you did the drum battle, you said that 6 months later you left the day job thing. Did you say, I'm just going to do this professionally and just make some money from this and move on?
What happened was I did like a set because I was doing really well in my day gig, and I was just going to play like hobby until Gary hit me with a stick. I was like, I had a lot of gigs and I was teaching and I was working with a guy. What happened was but Gary pushed me, didn't push me, just influenced me in that direction. I worked with a guy who got a record deal on RCA, a guy named Charlie Elgart. And it's funny because one of the people you interviewed, who's a lifetime friend, Gary Seligson, I think he was playing with Gary. Charlie got a deal on RCA. I put in time to record. We recorded the House of Music, really nice studio in Jersey. And right before the recording, my boss was like, we have this big project and you can't take off that weekend. I was like, well, wait, like I had this in the books for like 2 months. And I went home to my wife and my wife was like, we'll figure it out. Quit.
Wow. That's great.
And that was that. And then Gary Foote at all, the bass player. Gary and I are lifetime friends since then.
I've heard of him. I don't know him personally.
Gary played with Billy Cobham even. Gary played with Blood, Sweat, and Tears for decades. And now Smokey Robinson for a long time. But Gary and I became best friends. So I left like, that was it. Did one recording at my weddings and stuff like this. What Gary hooked me up with was there was a thing called Rock Video International, RVI, Daiichi Kosho. And it was somewhere in Hell's Kitchen when it really was Hell's Kitchen. Guys would be shooting up in the middle of the night after the sessions. And keep your eyes open.
Just kidding.
And Gary got me on these. It was the beginning of karaoke tracks. So they had 3 24-track Sony PCM studios going like 24/7. So I worked for Gary, who was one of the producers. So I think the first song I recorded the karaoke, and it was really trippy. We would record like everything into the Fairlight. You'd sample the drums and you play everything back from a pad system. But I'd see everybody up there, Sandy Gennaro, Chuck Berge that plays with Billy Joel forever. Like sometimes they rehire like the original rhythm section to play on the stuff. I was pretty good and pretty quick. So I worked for Gary, and then I started working I was like the cleanup guy for any of the tracks that producers just didn't want to do. Like, who knew there were 2 different drummers on Islands in the Stream? I don't know what happened there, but there's 2 drummers on it. So you completely recreated a track. So I had like the super solid karaoke account for a long time. And I was doing club dates and then worked with Charlie. And what happened was there was a radio station called CD 101.9, and CD 101.9 was a big deal. And this guy, Charlie Elgart, was like the darling of CD 101.9. Man, I'd walk into like Walmart. I'd walk into anywhere. I'd hear myself. They had a thing called the CD 101.9 Fantasy Band. And it was great. It was Noel Pointer. It was Cornell Dupree. It was, who else was, man, because I was really friendly with Noel. Sometimes Larry Coryell, Deborah Henson Conant, the harp player. I'm trying to think, but Dave Valentine. Man, this is very important. And the promoter, whoever was supposed to do it, was like some high-level drummer, like the day before said, I can't make it. And the promoter remembered me from playing with Charlie Elgart. So he threw me I was the only Indian with all these chiefs, man. And the first show I did, man, Dave Valentine was a great flute player. Man, little did I know he went to High School of Music and Art as a drummer, not as a flute player. And we played. And I had studied like Robbie Amin and real fusion-y, a lot of roots together in Afro-Cuban. Man, in the middle of the show, he started yelling at me. He said, don't you have a stick? As I'm playing like some furious Wawanko, he unscrewed the cowbell on the bass drum and started playing the rhythm that he wanted to hear in my face. And we finished this set, and I was like, yeah, what's up with that, brother? And he said, why don't you come over to my house? He lived in the South Bronx, Hunts Point. He had all the tapes from like Cuba, like on Beta or whatever, like Muniquitos and all this. And he's like, you're a pretty good little drummer. Why don't you come over? So that was the beginning of how I was like a fusion guy. And that's how I started getting into world rhythms, getting into jazz. And I didn't play with John Lee on that one. Victor Bailey played the first one. The second one, John played with Dizzy Gillespie forever. And I knew him as a kid from like when he played with Larry Coryell and they had these great records with Jerry Brown. And John and I played together on a New Year's Eve. We loved each other. Coryell was on that one. And then he said, what are you doing for breakfast tomorrow? I said, well, nothing. He said, why don't my wife and I come over and we'll have brunch? We had brunch and we became lifelong friends. He's the witness at my wedding, he and his wife. I still just talk to him every week. I just was in Savannah with him. We're still playing his groups. And that was like basically how I started getting into jazz. Yeah.
And you started working. Did you do a lot of touring after that?
I did fantasy band for a while, and I was mucking around in the New York area doing all like 300 gigs a year, weddings and freelancing and bars and et cetera, et cetera. And there was Alphonse Muson canceled on a tour, and John saw a spot and he put me in on my first tour in Europe with the great Bobby Malik, and there's a Dutch piano player named Jasper van Hoof, and man, one of my idols, Michael Urbaniak. And it was my first big tour. And it was crazy. I was like, man, thrown into the fire again, like stubbing on Broadway. Just roll out there and here you go, get them. So that started, and that gave me a little bit of a stamp of approval because these were heavy hitters in the European market. I started working with a vibe player from Augsburg that I worked with. He's a great vibe player and composer. Worked with him from 1993. We may do something still, but man, I did his tours like 6 months a year. I'd be in Europe for 10 years, back and forth and back and forth. Then I started working with another artist in Germany. So it was just like, that was quite, I saw who was in an interview that was it Gary Seligson that said that Gary Chester told him never to leave town.
Yes.
I know all about that because when I was touring, there was one point where people actually asked me if I had moved to Europe.
Wow.
And man, if you're gone that much, it doesn't matter how loyal they are. They start with L and they move right to M.
It's true. It's the out of sight, out of mind. Thing is, now it's a little different now where you can contact someone on social media and just stay in contact. But then again, if you're still out, you're not there if someone needs you next week.
You're not available. You and I talked about that. That's why I wanted to stop being on the road. I wanted to be home.
So let's get to the topic of this show, which is Broadway drumming, which brings me to how I don't even know how we met. Can't remember how we connected. How did we connect?
We met just because I was subbing over at Beautiful for Clint again.
Okay.
And I'm very good friends with Lynn Dankel and Joe Moat.
Yes.
We lived in the same town for a while, and Joe and I are like buddies, and I love Lynn and Joe, and they had always spoken so highly of you, and I had never met you. They're like, oh, you're going to love Clayton. When you meet you and Clayton are just going to hit it off. You're going to love Clayton. You're going to love Clayton. I was like, people told me the same thing about Joe. They were like, I hadn't met Joe, and Joe walked into my house unannounced. I had a Christmas party. I never met him. He walked up the stairs and he doesn't remember this, but he poked me in the chest. He just goes, I'm Joe Moat. And we became lifelong friends. But everybody had been talking about you, and somehow we had free tickets. They said, oh, there's free tickets to the previews or the closed rehearsals of Ain't Too Proud. And I know Seth really well. Seth Farber and I go back 20 or 30 years, and Rick had been on Beautiful. Roger Squatero, I know for 20 or 30 years. And I was like, man, everybody was like, man, this show's pretty cool. So I went over, and I think maybe I texted you during the show, and I was like, of course you sounded as you sound. And the show was great. And that's how we first met. And then I think maybe you invited me down just like to see it. And man, I loved you. You're super cool, and you play great. And then we started talking about stuff, and I think that's how we met.
Yeah, now I just remember watching the show, and you were telling me how you wanted to get off the road and stay in town more, and subbing on shows and eventually having your own show is definitely the way to do that, because it's a way to earn money and to be able to do other things. But I'm very happy that usually when people have shows, it's not very easy to have someone come in sub, because especially if you don't know them and don't know how they play. But let me just say this publicly, and I've said this before, when people come in to sub at my show and I watch them play, I can tell within like 2 measures if they're able to play the show. And then when I heard you play the way you do the things you do, I start out with this simple fill, and then you start the swing shuffle groove, and I was like, okay, this guy gets it. So I didn't really have to hear very much else, because I just know the music, the style, and obviously you can play your ass off. So it was very easy for me to say, all right, go ahead and do what you need to do. Come in, and you're going to sub tomorrow. It wasn't that bad.
No, but you have no idea how grateful I was. I'm very grateful. It was because we talked about that, and that's about your strength, knowing your strengths.
Yes.
And I love the way you play, and you and I see time very similarly. I think we have a lot of similar influences somehow. So it was like, just made sense. As soon as I started to play along with you, and you're like the best guy. I don't want to say the best guy, because Clint again is like my dear friend. I love Clint. He's a great drummer, and he made it so easy to sub for him. Your method is so beautiful. You must have subbed a lot.
Yes.
Because you make it so easy. You send with the conductor tape and with the 2 different audios. I had like audio of house, and I had audio of just drum track separated. And then you can sit home, you can study and dissect. You go measure by measure. And that's what I did. You probably saw I'm an extensive note taker. But man, I knew where every open hi-hat was, and I just to see what things you did every time, every fill. I stick this stuff the same way you did. I was playing your sticks. I bought those groove sickles when I first studied with you.
Being a star among the jazz world and doing European tours and playing with all kinds of people, and you're like, what time for a transition? What did you do to connect to people on Broadway, and what was the first show that you subbed on?
If you're serious about Broadway, here are 2 resources that could change your career. The first is the free How to Land a Broadway Gig Roadmap. This breaks down exactly how the industry works, who the key players are, and how to position yourself to get the call. It covers building relationships the right way, getting on sub lists, and creating real opportunities. And the best part? It's completely free. Just become a subscriber to Broadway Drumming 101. Free or paid, and you can grab it instantly. Head over to BroadwayBoundBook.com/roadmap and get it today. The second thing you need to get is the Broadway Sub Playbook, and it's just $7.99 at signaturebrandworks.com. This is a step-by-step guide that takes you from the moment you get the call all the way to opening night. How to study the score, build your sub book, take notes from the conductor, and walk into that pit like someone who absolutely belongs there. These are the exact systems that most working Broadway musicians use every day. If a career in theater is what you're after, these 2 resources will help get you there. If you want the full picture, pick up Clayton's book, Broadway Bound and Beyond. It's available at Amazon.com and other places where books are sold online. If you want a signed copy, you can get one today at signaturebrandworks.com. Thanks for listening.
Well, I reached out to a lot of people I knew, and I know you asked a question, not what to do. It's just, I still feel like I'm a rookie. I'll tell you the one thing never to do is never let the words come out of your mouth. I don't think I want to play on Broadway, because I did that very early in my career, and that wasn't a good idea. So what I did later was I reached out to some of those guys who had said to me, "Hey man, would you like to take a look at my show?" I'd be, "I'm on the road, I'm busy. I don't know if I have time to do it," which I probably should have just said, "Yes, please." I reached out to a bunch of guys I knew, and a drummer named Brian Dougherty, who he was played with a lot of great guys, and he and I know each other again, like Darius Seligson. I know each other since high school. Brian was working on the Twyla Tharp Bob Dylan show. And this was Times They Are Changing, maybe.
Okay.
And I had never played on Broadway, and I hadn't played in the pit, since my junior year in high school or something. And I was going on tour all the time. So I observed him a couple times. I went out, took the book. The poor guy's in a van listening to the music, and I had the charts and I'm marking. I came home and shedded. And this was just like a anomaly. Well, it's not really an anomaly, but I came home. When did the show close? The week of my first night. Oh, so I never got to play the show.
Really?
And I was like, I want to do Broadway, but boy, that was a lot of work. And it was a lot of work. So I hung around, and I then I was touring a lot. And I think I scored this. I had a big band gig for 3 years that happened every week. I was on tour, and I was teaching at 2 colleges then, a lot of private students. So that's all I did. And finally, I'm friends with Andres Ferrero, who's the great drummer that plays on Hamilton. And we knew each other in the early 90s, man. And I'll never forget, I was standing at an IAJE conference with John Lee and Jerry Brown and one of my favorite drummers in Dugu, and I think Peter Erskine. And Andres rolled up. It's like, well, he was called Patrick then. He's like, "Hey, I'm Patrick Ferrero, and I'm John Lee. Well, I played with Paquito." And I was like, oh, "Okay." And we really hit it off. And I didn't see him, man, for whatever that was. Like whenever In the Heights came out, at least 10 years. I never went to the NAMM show. And I had endorsements forever. My wife kept going, "You're going to have a great time. Go to the NAMM show. You're going to love the NAMM show. All your friends are there." So I went to the NAMM show, and who rolls up on me? And I used to have long hair, man. I had the hair like the middle of my back, and I wore a duster down to my ankles and little blue John Lennon glasses.
What?
I was like a freak. And Andres looked different too. He's a little heavier, and I think he had longer hair. We're standing on they used to have an autograph line for Yamaha drummers it was beautiful. Like the lowly guys like me would be on the same table with like a Dave Weckl or a Jerry Brown or a Sonny Emery or like my idols. One year standing next to Dave. I think I was sandwiched that year between Antonio Sanchez, Jerry Murata, Andres, and myself. And we're standing there. He's looking at me. He's like, "Wait, you're Carl Latham?" And I looked at him and wait. You're Andres Ferrero? So we reunited then, we hung out, and he kept trying to get me to do In the Heights. And I looked at In the Heights a bunch of times. I met Lynn and a lot of allies in that pit. Joe Bergamini was helping me out. But in the end, there was so much conducting stuff going on. And as we know, you are trusting me with your book. I'm your employee, man. So I even as much as I knew I could play the show, but as much as I really wanted to play the show because it was great and it was like super challenging and cool, I just didn't feel comfortable enough to go in and play it. So I just said, like, this is not the show for me to like cut my teeth on Broadway. Did you see the pit? Did you go in? There was a lot of stuff going on over there and a lot of conducting. So didn't do Broadway for a while. Then I didn't do it for a minute. And then he scored a show called Bring It On. Do you remember that for a second?
I've heard of it. I didn't see it or don't know.
And Lynn and all those guys were involved in it. And Andres can play a lot. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He plays every damn instrument. He's like a great guitar player. He's a great bass player. He plays damn percussion. He's one of those super freak guys. And Kit had 4 snare drums, I think, in electronics. Like Hamilton has 5 snare drums in electronics. And that was the first show I subbed on. And he was like, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And it was great. Carl Carter was the bass player. I'm sure you God love Karl. All those guys were so kind, man. And I walked in. I'll never forget this. Joe Bergamini we're bros for life, but he was bros for life because he came to pick up his check. And the conductor didn't know it was my first time playing a show. And it was like a Saturday, like a bad day or something. And Joe knocked on the door, and I was in there by myself, getting it together. He came up behind me. I didn't even see him. He gave me a big hug, and he goes, "You got this, bro."
Oh, man.
And it was great. And all the cats pulled, and I did it. Like, I got through my first show. The cats gave me a little standing ovation, and it was like, and then you do it. It's like that. Unfortunately, that show closed pretty soon. Went back to touring again, and then Andres called me for Hamilton right away when Hamilton came. When I saw Hamilton in the public, and Lynn was cool, and one of those freak life interventions. I stepped into my house to just like go check my oil or check the salt in my water softener or something. I stepped on a flight of stairs and the entire stairwell fell off the wall. And I used to skydive. So, bro, I'm holding on to the bulkhead, listening to my rotator cuff just shredding, just going. And below me is the whole set of stairs. So I'm like, either I'm going to break my ankles or I'm going to break my wrist. So I did like a parachuting roll. It was funny because I had a ladder in the basement, and fortunately, my wife was at work because she's like, if you ever go in the basement by yourself again, I'll kill you. And shot my arm up over the hairs, my shoulder, see if I could do anything with it. And I found the ladder and I got to the top of the stairs. That was the last time my arm went above my shoulder for like 3 months. Just like the first wave of Hamilton. So then he kept saying, like, why don't you come in? Why don't you come in? I did it. I don't know if I did 10 maybe over. I did like a year of it. And I'll never forget the first show over there. It felt like skydiving because it was still like maybe in the first year of it, there was that super buzz. Like there'd be some chic would be in the audience or some dignitary or whatever, some movie star. And it felt like I heard of elephants over your head, like, or a swarm of bees. You could feel the energy. And it was one of those things where I did really well on my first show, and I did well, but it was a confidence thing. I think I never quite felt like I had it. And I know how that can be. Like, I think everybody may have their show like that. I think I was so grateful that Andres threw me in the loop over there. The cats were great. They were pulling for me, but I never myself like had it. I had that little question in the back of my mind. There's a lot of stuff going on in that show. There's 5 snare drums. The click track is starting and stopping all the time. You keep putting a splash cymbal underneath under the piccolo drum on weights. I'll never forget the first show. Man, I was playing with the hip hop groups. I was hitting the splash cymbal so hard I inverted the bell. So like I'm trying to get the splash cymbal back on the little stand it went on, and they're counting off the next song. And I swung my foot around. There were electronics too. I swung my foot around to hit like the electronic drums or the acoustic drums. I hit the electronics and nothing came out. So then the next downbeat came and I hit like everything. It was one of the reprises in it where the first time you play like the howitzers 4 measures in a row and it's like a decrescendo. And the second time you only hit like triple F the first time. And then after that, I think maybe it might not even be anything. And I'll never forget Dinklage. We finished the show because I hit the first one and I was like, I missed it. So I had like slammed the second one. And then I started slamming the third one. And then I started looking at the page. And I'm like, wait, there's rests up there.
Oh,
and he came over to me and he said, man, we all could hear you through the walls. I got this. I don't got this. I don't got this. He said, not only do I love the way you play, I love the way you own your mistakes. I like fired like 4 howitzers I didn't mean to do in the middle of Hamilton. It was a great show. And for me, it was a great experience because it's so challenging. And I was like hitting my head against the wall all the time, like getting there, but not really feeling like I ever got it. And Clint, years before Clint Gannon, who's like a bro, love Clint, and he's man. People don't know who Clint Gannon is. They need to like get their wiki out because Clint is like one of the most important drummers in New York for the last 30 years. Clint's a super mensch, and I called him up on a Saturday. Do you need any subs? And he had said in the beginning, when you get done with that Hamilton nonsense, why don't you give me a ring? And I called him up. And he's like, I don't need any subs, bro. But what are you doing tomorrow? Which this is advice. I can't give a lot of advice on what to do and what not to do, but this is one of the things I can definitely give you advice is you say nothing. Why? He said, why don't you come down and watch? And I went down and watched, and we had a long talk after the talk that you mentioned about getting off the road. He said, Karl, do you really want to do musical theater? This is a commitment to do musical theater. And I said, get it. And we talked probably for an hour or something, and he had me come back on a Tuesday, gave me the book. I watched a couple times on the next Sunday. I watched once to see him again and once to watch the conductor. Man, I think he threw me in on like the next Tuesday, like 10 days or something, like old school.
What show was this? Okay.
And I think maybe I got 3 notes on my first show over there. And like most of the pits, everybody's cool. They're pulling for you. Everybody's the bass players. Jeff, who I'm talking about. I can see his face. He rides bicycles. Played on Ain't Too Proud. Jeff. He was helping me out. And they all pulled for you. Seth was there. But that's the show where I really got my show together because I figured it out because I only worked with like the same conductor before. I worked with a couple different conductors at Hamilton, which was challenging, but mostly the same conductor. But that's where I really got to see like 3 or 4 different conducting styles and see how the dynamics of a show change depending on if there's a lead, who's the lead and who's not the lead. And the lead changed there a few times. Like I remember when Vanessa Carlton came in, she did something exactly opposite, where there was a retard in the other version, she accelerated. And I'll never forget because I had my head down a little bit. The conductor's like, can't you even watch me? But that's how you learn it. I learned over there. I think I did a couple of years. Clint, and that's a beautiful thing. Clint takes off a lot because Clint is like so in demand. And Clint was very equitable. He just sent it out like who's available. Then you take 3 here, you take 3 there, you take 3 there. And I finally got like my Broadway thing, my show together. And so I felt that's when I came in to do your show. I felt confident enough because I knew the system of learning a show by then. That's what's so important and you mentioned it with some of the other guys, learning your system of learning a show. I just all you guys, I watch, you cats are masters. Everybody, I watched the way people go to use the bathroom or to use the band room. Like if that show had like a nice little band room, but man, when all the regulars were there, I didn't take one of the seats. It's like any other thing. You just when you're working with master, you cats are all masters. Ray Marchica, this is a master. Gary Seligson, masters at this craft, and great people and great drummers, but masters of this very intense thing. And everybody talks about how you see I'm getting like all excited. Everybody talks about how man, I can play in front of 40,000 people like we're having this conversation on a big stage. But man, you go in there, you're naked when you're in a booth and you're all by yourself. They count that first song off and you've been playing along with Clayton Craddock for like a month and all of a sudden there's no more Clayton Craddock. But for people that have an interest in Broadway, you cannot over prepare. And it doesn't matter if you never do a show ever. This is going to help you in every other facet of your playing. But you just prep it. Like I always say, you have to know like the fill you did. You had to know that fill at the end of I'm Losing You. If somebody hits you with a sledgehammer when you needed to execute that fill, it still comes out.
Right.
And there's like, you have brain fizzles. I don't know if you do, but man, you'd be in the middle of the show to be like, the one that killed me in your show the first time I played it was that naked hi-hat part in it, man. Papa is a rolling stone. We're just going tick. But man, when that bass drum comes in and out, it's life or death.
And it's honestly, it's a simple part. You have to do it right in the context of the show. Again, the hi-hat thing you're just playing eighth notes, but there are reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it matters for the people up on stage above us. It matters for the lights. It matters for the sound. It matters for the context of the music and the story that's being told. Again, it's simple, but everything that I do and everything that anyone does in a show matters. We're painting a bigger picture, and we're of the color that is being used. So you have to look at it. you're an essential ingredient in all that stuff. But I'd say
Did you talk about? I saw maybe 4 or 5 interviews. You talked about that a lot in the other interviews, or did you? Because that's what they need to know. Is like the only note I got on Bring It On the first time, and that had like you walk out of there with like sweat in your shoes. You played so hard. It was all like drum chords. You played pretty strong, and there was a cymbal roll I missed. Came in just a little bit early. Well, not until I saw the show. The cymbal roll's timed with the sunrise on the stage. It's a lighting cue. Man, the things that you think are important, it's a whole nother thing than just playing with a group. Or for me, learning, because I've played with a lot of singers and songwriters. You're in charge down there. That's a fine balance. The conductor's in charge, clearly. The conductor is always right, 110% of the time. You have to play with the authority that you're in charge.
Before we jump back into the episode, we want to ask a quick favor. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, please take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Those reviews really matter. They help other musicians like you find the podcast, and all of us here truly appreciate the support. We also want to let you know that we've got new merchandise available now at signaturebrandworks.com. We've got backpacks, sweatshirts, t-shirts, sweatpants, mugs, tote bags, hats, beanies, mouse pads, and a whole lot more. Practical stuff you can actually use, whether you're heading to rehearsal, the gym, a session, or just living your life. Thanks again for listening, for supporting the show, and for being part of this community. Now let's get back to the episode.
You have to play with the authority that you're in charge. And play in whatever, like that's what I'm talking about. In that simple little eighth app, you got to play it with the same conviction that you played it with. You have to be invisible. You have to know the show so much, so well, and play so much like the person you're subbing for. You should be invisible. Never forget when I finished your first show, and I don't think the leads knew that there was a sub, and they turned around and the main lead just went like, gave me 2 thumbs up. It was like, that's what you want to have happen at the end of the show. He didn't know there was a sub down there. That's the whole point, is that you can't possibly know everything that's going on. Just do what you do and really know. You have to know. You can't prep. You cannot over prepare. You can't have your head buried in the music. I'm staring down the conductor. I'll tell you what's important, what I find important. As a newbie, knowing the spaces between the songs. That's the first thing I do now, is write down in my conductor video where the markings are of the timeline. Because otherwise you're sitting there like a deer in the headlight waiting for the next downbeat to come every time you're playing a show the first time. You play a show a couple times the flow. But otherwise, make it easy for yourself. And what makes it easy for yourself is over preparing. Man, I prep so hard. You can't picture how all of us do. We all talk about it. You just prep, have respect for the book, understand that this person is trusting you with their book. It's your job, man. And I don't want to make you look good. It doesn't matter what book you're subbing on.
Yes.
Like you have to, so I'm on Beautiful, man. I had to like distill. Like some drummers add stuff as they go to the parts I'm singing. I'm sure it's based on, like you're saying, lighting cues or choreography, things changing. Clint distills his part, man. Clint stuff is just like pristine. It's elegant. Is the best way to describe it. He doesn't play a note that's not necessary over there. Mm-mm. Everything he plays in the part has like everybody, every damn note has meaning. If you're just playing like 2 and 4 on the tambourine, that's very important. But whatever it is, you have to emulate that guy. Like Clint and I are totally different personality types. Clint's like real. The people describe Clint as the way he plays is it feels like he's never been anxious, which that's pretty important. It's like he's got all those people up there, and that requires like coming back a little bit, or like playing on other shows. Like when I played on Bring It On, like just because anecdotally from my personal experiences, it was called Bring It On. It was literally water in my shoes when I finished the show. You were playing like that, and your show. What I loved about playing for you, man, you play perfect on it. You just play right. Your time thing is right down the middle. There's no negotiating. You just play what you play and play with the click track. I said to George before the first, George came over, he was like, I said, you play like the bass part down like it's like a 4-lane highway. And whenever I'm in doubt, I'm just going to put the bass drum in the middle of that.
Yes.
And he's like, I understand.
Yes. That's so true. But
not all shows have different things, like strengths and weaknesses. I don't know how I would do in like a real traditional Broadway show. I could try it. That would be a totally new experience for me. Like a lot of conducting, and like I'm meant to play with clicks and stuff like this. Whereas there's like immense amounts of conducting and movement. I don't know. That would be a brand new challenge for me.
You have the Paiste cymbal sounds and gongs T-shirt on right now. You use Paiste cymbals, and you and I both use Yamaha drums, which I see in the background to right. And you use innovative drumsticks. Tell me why you use Paiste and why you use Yamaha and you use Remo or Evans. Tell me about
Evans.
Tell me why you use what you use.
Because I'm a believer. I don't mean to diss anybody else, but I honestly believe they make the best cymbals. Because I was like an evangelist when I went to the factory in Switzerland. Like I didn't quite get it when I first signed with them. I was with Sabian for maybe 10 years or something like this. And my great friend Kim Plainfield pulled me over to Paiste. And I'll never forget I was in Europe all the time. So I went to the factory and they have a wall and they just said, look, because I like when I used to go to Sabian warehouse, you'd find a ride cymbal you like. Then you'd pull like 10 of those and you'd find one of those 10 that you really like. Then you pull a set of hi-hats and see which make, and then within those, which of those 10 do you like that matches that ride, etc. Paiste was a totally different concept. They were like, dude, any sound that you can hear in your head is on that wall. And the whole idea is you pick and choose from that sound palette, but they make such great cymbals and they have unbelievable quality control. And man, I play a lot of different styles of music. So it's like they make great jazz cymbals. They make great cymbals to record with. Like Signature Line is ridiculous to record with. I think best crash in the world is a 17-inch fast crash Paiste. You can't picture. If you want to hear Paiste cymbals on a recording where you just go like, there's the Andy Snitzer recording I played on called Traveler. Man, the crash cymbals go like it's like a little like a firework like every time. And that's Paiste. And I love their sounds and they're great people. And I just love them. They're like my people. I'm buddies with the family and etc. Yamaha, I waited for Yamaha because I was like had stuff going on early, and I think Pearl looked at me, and it's funny because I think whoever the Sonar rep was, it was Hohner Sonar. I had Sonar drums when I was a kid, and I sold them off to get my first set of Yamahas. And somehow somebody was trying to coordinate with me with them, but who would know that my bulk of my career would be in Europe, in Germany, of course, where Yamaha would send me drums, and then we'd have to lug these drums around because we traveled jazz tours by van, and the guys in the band hated me because every venue we roll in, there'd be Sonar drums. I'd be like, no, I got to play the Yamahas. But Yamaha I love because I waited for those drums. And when I came in, I was playing, do you remember the original Recording Customs? I had a cherry set of those, like typical massive drum set, 3 or 4 across the top and a couple on the bottom and hanging toms, etc. And they sound incredible. And I got into their maple drums later. So by mistake, they sent me a maple kit. That changed my life because I think I only have maple drums here now, other than the little stage guys. Couldn't wait to get these drums. I saw those like with Larry Lelly and Richie Mercurio, and they bring the drums in town for us to check the prototypes. I saw these years ago when they first made them. I couldn't wait to get this drum set. Man, there's the floor tom has snares in it, so you can do the 2 snare thing. The thing I'm waiting on is the Crosstown hardware. About that, it weighs 18 pounds.
Oh, really light $400 set?
Yep. It's aluminum. Man, it weighs like they're big. I have a couple of the big high-end hi-hats here. The whole damn bag weighs like the same weight as like a hi-hat stand.
No, a friend of mine has those, and he told me about them, and it's great.
They're great, right? So that's past Yamaha. And then Evans, the story that goes like this with Evans and Sabian. As I said, I was like a classical freak when I was a kid. And my parents would let me stay up late to watch Vic Firth on great performances with like Rabbit Ears. And I watched him through the snow. And I played timpani and all-state band, all this stuff. And Vic Firth personally signed me. And I'll never forget. It was like blew my mind, like talking to Vic. And Vic was like, oh, do you have a cymbal endorsement? I'm like, no. He said, oh, what about Sabian? I was like, sure. He said, okay, you're endorsed with them now. I said, well, what about, he said, do you have a head endorsement? I said, no. He said, what about Evans? Do you like Evans? I said, sure, because I was the Steve Gadd freak. He was using the hydraulic things. And it was like, oh, you're with Evans. So he called the guys, and I was signed with 3 companies in like a day.
Wow, that's
pretty amazing. But then I left Sabian. It was great, and they make great product. And Andy Zildjian's a bro. I love him. He's like in ice hockey, and I'm into ice hockey. When I went to Paiste, it was like a home. I found a home. That's like a home for me. Like I helped develop like dark energy cymbals. I was on like the development team with them, and I love the family. I get along great with Eric and Kelly, and I just can't say enough great stuff about their product.
What projects are you working on right now? And do other than the latest thing that you recorded with is it a trio or quartet?
That was a trio, yep. I have a long-standing project that probably will be the next release. It started with a project with John Hart and Mark Egan, and then John now is the head of the guitar department at University of Miami at Frost. So he left us, and the great Vic Joris played with us, but Vic passed away. And Mark is like north and south. Today's Mark's birthday. Big shout out to Mark Egan and Steve Jordan's birthday, one of my favorite drummers.
Oh, wow.
They give each other a birthday call every year, I think. And the next project, the project's called Living Standards, where I record like pop music. And the next bunch of songs are like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And there is a King Crimson in there. There's Layla's in the pile as like a fast jazz swing to like a gospel at the end. And that project, Rachel Z, the piano player, she's playing in the current version. And a great guitar player named Mitch Stein and this young bass player, man, I love Jonathan Toscano. And Rachel and Omar are married. Omar Hakim, one of my absolute favorite drummers. People, they said, why don't you try Jonathan? And so they're lending me him, and Jonathan is ridiculous. Great young bass player. So that's probably the next recording project. I have another project with a great sax player named Don Braden. I've done with Winton. He like replaced Branford when Branford went to Sting's band, and he's like one of the no longer a young lion. He's one of the super heavy hitting like post bop sax players. So we have a band called Big Funk. We have a CD that's in the can. I think the next thing that's probably going to come out will be the next version of Living Standards. And Alex Collins and I are going to do another CD. We're a bass player float at the minute, just like scheduling. We're trying to figure out which is the right guy. But plus I record all the time. Like as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to be recording. I recorded here 60 cues for a music library. Mark Berman, keyboard player. He used to be in Broadway all the time. He plays on Mrs. Maisel as like her music director. He's the piano player. And Mark and Michael Carlotto, which is how small our world is. Michael Carlotto was Dave Weckl, Joel Rosenblatt, and Paul Adamy's college roommate.
Oh, wow.
Michael does a lot of gaming music. He's like great guitar player. He played with CeeLo Green. He does a lot of R&Bs. He plays with all those gospel chops guys. And he's developing a music library. And I've been playing on a lot of stuff for him. I played on something that we thought it went live and it didn't. It was a national Walmart campaign where I recreated a Wilson Pickett tune. So I have a couple tracks for him to do today. And I just played on a jazz guitar player CD I can't talk about where I replaced the drummer. And it took about a week for a producer out in Denver. And what I'm really doing is prepping for colleges because I teach at 3 colleges in Jersey. I teach at Drew University and I teach at County College of Morris and at a Passaic County College, and a really diverse spectrum of students. So what I'm doing now is I created like a pamphlet books, and I'm creating YouTube videos because I have a fear that we may be going in and out for the rest of the semester, maybe remote or in person. So what I want to have is like the entire sequence of like 4 semesters worth of material as little snippet lessons, just in case we don't get to see each other for a couple of weeks. So like you're doing with the podcast. This is the job I'm doing now. So OBSs, have you figured out OBS? To something cool maybe people might want to look at. During shutdown, just to remain sane, I created this thing called Concerts in the Cabin. Like John Lee came to play here with Freddie Hendrix, who plays in the Dizzy Band. He plays all the solos. Roger Squatero came up. Martin Pizzarelli, Bucky Pizzarelli's son. All kinds of people came through, and I learned how to live stream from the house with like webcams. And I learned how to do like 4 different cameras, like you learned a podcast. And I learned how to switch the cameras while I'd be drumming. Like if it was bass solo, I'd reach over to my iPad and put it on the bass. Or there's a thing like in Facebook called Concerts from the Cabin. And that's the next stuff is I'm using those resources. I learned OBS and some other things to make these. What do people need to do if they want to be in this business? They need to keep churning. You have to have intellectual curiosity. You think you got it at some point in time. I think that's the kiss of death. You just want to keep learning your craft. And like when there weren't gigs, I learned a bunch of other stuff, and I really jumped into my recording. And I jumped into Pro Tools, and I jumped into editing. You have to keep moving all the time.
Amen.
I know so many young students have that perception of going directly from school to Broadway. And I wonder, is there anybody that like successfully did it? Because how do you possibly know all these styles, like really without going out and playing them? Unless the ensembles are so great at the schools now. I don't know. How do you really know how to play, like do the thing you do? I know I learned to play with the Shirelles for 20 years. That's how I learned to do it. Like getting yelled at. Why are you doing that? How many times people yelled at me on stage? Wow. how dare you play that cymbal with a horn, John Faddis said to me one time. Because I went to like, it's like Mark Egan's favorite ride cymbal, a Paiste 602. Think of ECM. It is that sound. I went to the flat ride, and Faddis just turned around at me at the top of his lungs and said, how dare you? They added extra stuff in there. How dare you play that cymbal with a horn? I was like, wow, damn, that's how do they figure that stuff out just going to college? Like, they can all play like the latest Vinnie Colaiuta. Like, God bless them. I can't.
Right,
but,
neither can I.
They didn't get mentored. They didn't figure stuff. What I find is like the older and older I get is what not to play. It's much more important than what you can play.
Right.
We all can play a bunch of stuff. I just assume if the guy that parks my car, I assume plays as good as I do when I come play your show.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you play drums? Oh, sure. You're probably a great drummer. But it's what you need to like lose to play the right stuff.
It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this is to share some of the experiences of my colleagues, to show people the path that they took in order to get to where they are. And very few of us have come right out of college and gotten a show on Broadway. Maybe one, and that might be Sean McDaniel, but he didn't come and go from school right into a show. But he's so good at what he does. But he knows the styles of music that these shows come from, and he's really good at playing all this stuff. So he's a freak of nature. But again, he put in the time too. He didn't just graduate.
But he's like a Broadway freak.
Correct.
Because I'm friends with Ben Cohen's college roommate. I taught his son. This is how small the world is. And I didn't know Sean had gone to North Texas, huh? And Clint told me a story. Was it Clint? I can't remember. One of my friends told me a story. When Sean was a kid, the show rolled through town. Sean rolled up to him and like was talking about some cast album he had played on like from like 10 years before. That's not fresh out of college. That's like Sean paid heavy dues. Sean is like to me is one of the greats of the next wave of Broadway guys like Pizzuti and all those and Marchika and all. I get a lot of shit from people when I tell them I'm playing on Broadway now. And they're like, why would you do that? I'm like, well, why would you do that?
We'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but all of us here want to take a moment to say thank you for supporting the podcast and for listening. We also want to let you know that Clayton's new book, Broadway Bound and Beyond, A Musician's Guide to Building a Theater Career, is officially out, and we're really proud of it. This book lays out what it actually takes to build a career on Broadway. The mindset, the preparation, the relationships, the money side of the business, and how to create longevity instead of just chasing the next gig. You can get your copy right now on Amazon.com. You can also get a signed copy by heading over to signaturebrandworks.com. If you're serious about your career, this book is for you. Now let's get back to the episode.
They're like, well, man, like, it doesn't pay that much. And I'm like, guys, like, do you understand how high level like playing on Broadway is? They have like some other concept of what it is. It's like every show's like a recording. Like when I played on Beautiful, every show over there was like you're doing a Carole King recording. Man, Zev Katz is playing bass and Dave Mann is playing horn over there. And it's like, it's a fucking recording. It's like you have not played anything this high in a long time. Every night is like that 7 days a week. 6 days a week. It's just like, that's my whole thing is I tell them, I'm like, well, why would you want to play like his parts? I'm like, because he plays fucking great parts. like, hello, why wouldn't I want to do that? Yeah. It's a weird thing to me. A lot of jazz guys don't get it. Well, it's not creative. It's like, well, he was creative in creating it. And to me, like I grew up playing classical. So to me, it's like, when I played Hamilton one time, I went to see Mahler with the New York Phil at night. And I said to my wife, I just did that same shit at this exact same level, playing hip hop and playing like R&B and playing like half of the Hamilton is like, I put Ringo on this, like you play like Ringo. It's a lot of Ringo shit in there. It's like, man, super high level. These are people, you can't explain it. And that's the whole point where I wonder about this college shit. Because even people that do like regional theater or play like in college or they think they know what this shit is like. Man, when you play Broadway on Broadway, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you, Karl Latham, for being a part of my podcast. It was great talking to you. Learned so much about you and so much about what you've done in the past and so much about what you're going to be doing, especially with all that amazing equipment in back of you. Are the next Quincy Jones, Ed Templeman.
We'll see about that.
Yep. Anyway, man, nice seeing you, and we will definitely be in touch very soon.
Yeah, so great to see you, man, and I wish you all the best. Love you. You're a great cat, and it was such an honor to sub for you, and even more importantly, to become friends with you.
Likewise, man. Thank you, and we will talk.
All right, take best to you.
Thank you, man. See you soon.